Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Healthy Happy Gut program. By now we should be starting to see some improvements. I think most of us have started on our supplement regime. There are still a few of you to get them and to get started on your treatment plan properly. But just with the diet alone, there should be heaps of improvements. So with what I've shared already, we should have learnt quite a lot, and we should be taking action steps in our diet to help improve our gut health. Okay, so this week what I want to talk to you about is the reasons why we're removing dairy, gluten, soy, and refined carbohydrates and sugar from the diet. So the reasons why we're doing this is to downregulate inflammation. It's also to identify any potential intolerances. And number 3 is because these foods can feed our pathogenic bacteria. So ideally, the less we feed them, the easier it is to get rid of them. Okay, so let's discuss inflammation first. And we know that these foods in particular cause inflammation for a lot of people. Often you'll see so many people take these out, and it might not be all of them at once. It might just be dairy removal or soy removal, but often we can see a reduction in inflammation overall in the body and in the gut. So if our gut was in better condition, ideally we'd tolerate these foods with less inflammation and reactivity. So we know casein and gluten in particular, when they are digested, it makes our gut release a protein called zonulin. And zonulin is a known protein that has been shown to contribute to intestinal hyperpermeability or leaky gut. So basically, we can actually test your zonulin levels, which will give us some clinical insight as to whether your gut is leaky or you do have intestinal hyperpermeability. Okay, so that's why we remove dairy and gluten in particular. Soy is estrogenic, so for so many women out there, we already have high estrogen problems, and if it's not necessarily high estrogen, it can be just an issue with metabolizing the estrogen. So that means like the liver needs support to clear it out. And also in our diet and lifestyle, there are so many things that contribute to higher estrogen levels. Also, men are supposed to have a little bit of estrogen, and it can be problematic for them as well. So when we have hormonal issues, this can cause higher inflammation in the body, and that's why we remove that. And also we know that sugar and refined carbohydrates. So refined carbohydrates are like your packaged foods, anything that comes in a packet, whether it be protein bars, like cakes and biscuits, pastries, that kind of thing. They tend to have a lot of preservatives, colors, artificial sweeteners, lots of different little chemical nasties in there, which cause inflammation in the body. So although there's research to say that these things do affect like mice and rats and that, there hasn't been a lot of research done over extended periods of time, specifically for those chemicals and additives in foods. But we do know lots of people out there have removed them from their diet and seen great benefit in doing so. And then of course sugar will feed that pathogenic bacteria in the gut, so that's causing higher inflammation too. All right, number 2 was intolerance. So dairy and gluten are your 2 most common allergenic foods, and lots of people out there do have intolerances and allergies to them and don't even know that that's what's causing a lot of their symptoms. And even just this week, I have just a friend, so she's not a client, but for years now, we've been discussing like gluten and dairy, and I think she's played with the idea of removing it, but finally she did remove it 2 weeks ago now. And already within 5 days, she said her psoriasis cleared. That sits on the top of her head. and it has been there pretty much like very long term for years and years. And she's feeling a lot better overall. She just feels like she's moving more freely and feels less bloated and puffy and going more regularly. So it just goes to show, like, you can go your whole life and not even know you have these intolerances unless you remove the foods to see how your body actually responds, okay? So with intolerances, if we think of a bucket, so some people might react after just a small amount of dairy or gluten or soy, for example, and that's it for them. They can't really have any more. Whereas other people might not, their buckets might not get full until they've had a few consecutive days with a little bit here and there. And that's why it's really hard to pick up on, because sometimes you might not feel bloated and crampy after dairy, but it could be your first bit in a week that you've had like after everything's spilled over and you start getting those symptoms. So yeah, like we can have that reactivity heighten or lessen depending on where we're at and how much we've had over the course of the week. So you might not experience any symptoms after one little morsel of it, but then you've had it here and there throughout the week, and then all of a sudden you've got diarrhea or constipation. So yeah, that's how intolerances work. It's not a known reactivity where it's like, yep, I definitely react every time I eat it. It can be very up and down, and also dependent on how it's processed. So say for example, someone might be able to tolerate milk in a cake, but they can't tolerate a cup of milk, okay? And so, yeah. And when we have these intolerances, because it causes that inflammation in the gut and hyperpermeability, we also see a lot of nutritional deficiencies going on. So even though we're eating a very healthy diet and we're taking supplements to try and get those levels up, the nutritional deficiencies can stay low because we're not absorbing well because of the leaky gut due to the inflammation from those foods we keep consuming that cause the leaky gut, okay? Some of the symptoms that we might experience because of food intolerances are diarrhea or constipation, mucus or blood in the stools, a worsening in severity of dermatitis, acne, psoriasis, and eczema, phlegm in the throat. So in particular, I find soy and dairy very good at producing excess mucus, so you get that phlegm in the throat. Also recurrent ear infections and tonsillitis too. So if you're getting a lot of that, quite commonly dairy contributes to that. We can also see lower back pain or other musculoskeletal aches and pains in the body, and reflux and indigestion, belching and flatulence due to food intolerances. So the idea is during this 8 weeks, we eliminate them from the diet as much as is possible, ideally completely if we can. And then once it comes back, once we've done the program and we're feeling like our gut is in a good, healthy way, we can introduce those foods one at a time back into the diet. But we do not want to be introducing everything all at once, because you won't know what food proteins are causing what symptoms. Whereas if 1 week you introduce dairy and you're like, yep, I'm fine with that, no reactivity after a week, I've had a little bit over 2-3 days and nothing's happened up to a week later, then you can reintroduce gluten. So you do it one at a time, make sure there's at least 7 days in between. And if you do see reactivity, take it back out of the diet, dependent on how severe it is. But obviously if there is reactivity, it's causing upset in your gut, which is going to keep triggering leaky gut. So we'll never actually repair that and strengthen it if we keep consuming those foods that we are reacting to. Alrighty? Okay. And lastly, number 3 was we take these foods out of the diet because they feed pathogenic bacteria in the gut. So if we remove them, we stop feeding them, we remove those foods, we stop feeding the pathogenic bacteria, and then it's so much easier to eliminate them and get rid of them. Whereas if we are taking the gut cleanse supplements, but yet we're eating sugar every day, it's going to be really difficult to kill the candida that feeds off of sugar, okay? So you really have to keep that to a bare minimum. And it's not forever, but we need to get rid of that pathogenic bacteria so that your gut health improves for the long term. Alrighty? So there are 3 reasons why we are removing those foods from the diet. If you have any questions or concerns at all, I know a lot of people are like, I'm gonna remove dairy, but I'm really scared that I'll have no calcium in my diet. Please make sure you have a chat to me about that, because there are so many different foods that we can get calcium from, okay? And anything else as well. If you're afraid of any nutritional deficiencies due to elimination, let me know and we can talk about that. Okay guys, I hope you have a fantastic week 3 and I will talk to you again next week. Bye.